All right, welcome everybody, episode 14. So I have just added the outcome of day 13 to the downloads. So if you go on cultofreak.com, go on season 1 downloads, you can get this file, which is pretty much the state that the scene was in, the rigging scene was in by the end of day 13, as the name might suggest. And if you don't want to do everything day by day, you want to catch up to this part, you can pick that one up. So now, if you're watching the stream, you've seen the previous one. If you're following on YouTube, this is day 14, and it might actually be on YouTube sooner than day 13, like the previous day. That's recorded. It was actually a pretty good day. It went well. It was for the most part theory, and then I don't know, maybe 5 minutes of offline work that turned into 20 minutes of stream work to fix a couple of misconnections that we had in the leg that were preventing the IK we added to connect properly. Now, if you keep up with YouTube, like as the videos come out, literally, when they come out, you get the notification and you go and watch them. If you're watching this and you don't see day 13, don't worry, it's just gonna be uploaded later, because I'm either gonna do an intro or I'm actually gonna re-record offline the theory part, because it's largely functional programming, I guess, applied to rigging. It's a subject that's dear to my heart. I'll have to watch it, make sure that it's not too confusing, because it's pretty tricky to get across what I was trying to get across in such a short amount of time, and I'd like it to be good enough. So what I might do is, edit on a couple of errata origin in case I made some mistakes, or just do an intro video, like explaining what you're about to watch, kind of thing. But yeah, so if you don't see video 13, don't worry, it's not a lost episode. It's gonna be there. It might just not be as it might not just not be sooner than day 14 is actually online. So let's get on with it. And where we're at, we are pretty much with the leg all fixed up, with the leg position where with the foot guide position oriented and position more or less the way we want it. Most of the stuff is working. I said it before, if you see this bit, if you pick up the scene, this bit is not lining up, that's okay. It's just that this is just a display thing. It's not anything that we're using. We're not driving the position of this tip, but the foot row is correct. So if you want to see whether the guide is working for those parameters or not, this is kind of what you do. You can see it's oriented correctly, which means it's pivoting from the correct point. And we are gonna work on the leg a little bit today. It's being requested that we guide another component. So the leg is actually pretty tricky to guide, especially when you have IKFK blending and a number of parameters. So it's a good candidate to do a guide that's more interesting than just extracting a couple of angles. Other thing we should probably be doing is, at this point, I don't believe that we care all that much to see all this stuff in the global component. Let's at least hide the guide. Control, raw mechanics, we also don't care to see. These we actually want, and these should be driving. Yep, these should be driving RK. So we are gonna look. This is gonna be super white, and there's gonna be a punch in the screen shatter. Green screen. Bane of my existence done outside the studio. So what we have said before, and it's gonna be super quick, is that what we intend for our global, like macro, I guess, bird's eye view, component view to be like, is we're gonna do leg global, which is gonna give us just the pre-flight parameters, go into the IK, from the same, if we need anything. Right now I don't believe we do. Go into the FK. These we are probably gonna encapsulate in a single component, and then we know that we have a foot. So within this space we need a blend for these two that is going to have an animation parameter somewhere here in our interface, and that is actually going to drive the foot. So that's what we're going to try and do today. Let us have a looky. So don't care for the leg Globo. We're going to have a look at the leg component. We have been diligent enough, I guess, with the naming, so that's not terrible. First things first, do we have a clear output for that leg? And let me make sure all of this is pinned. I don't like pinning in the node editor, but at this point it's revealed itself necessary to not have our nodes constantly warped everywhere. So we don't really have a good output from the leg. The foot might be receiving directly from something. Not a fan of that. We might want to fix that right away. So the foot is receiving from the leg Globo. It's getting a limited ankle from the leg Globo. That is okay for now. But what is gonna happen eventually is, whereas the IK is uncontrolled in many ways, we don't want that effect on the FK. And the other thing you will be able to see for these is that we will probably want the vectoring like this to actually have an effect on that. So we need to work on it. And that includes getting rest poses in and stuff like that. We might whack a few things because there's offsets in play to get the foot properly placed. We'll sort all of that out. It might take us a couple of streams, I guess. So we're gonna ignore that because we're not breaking boundaries, but we definitely want to work on the IKFK. I believe that for now we can probably hide these entirely. Let's see, do we have these? So we're using tibia and tibia start. We're using those as diagnostic objects, and this is from the leg Globo. This is just the diagnostic object. Yeah. So let's stash it here for later used. Unless, actually, let me make sure that I'm not using it before I do something stupid, but I'm pretty positive that I will not be using that. Yeah, or we're driving, like, this is word space, and we should not be doing road. No, actually we are, sorry, that's our SRT, so we don't want to mess with that because it's actually going out to a lot of places. We would only like the icon, so let's duplicate that. Let's stash it here so that we can use it. Make sure that that doesn't have connection. It really shouldn't. And let's say that's... I'm sure at this point you guys can hear my daughter. She's in a good mood this morning. So Lego... It's really hard to keep a straight face right now. We're gonna parent, constrain, connect that as needed. So chat, I trust you to tell me if the green screen starts chattering over gray too much. Hopefully it's not perceivable right now. And everything is good there. So let's get into the Twitch reflex of saving now. I also, because I mean that seems a bit too boring to do it in the stream, I've also got myself a stupidly simple icon control kind of thing for the FK. I could, for the sake of organizing things, dump an HRC kind of object, like you know, a simple separator, so that I can work off that. I want to buffer these, definitely put it in there, start working on it, and definitely duplicate it because we need 2 FK controls for these. I reckon this is gonna be, you know, nodeling and interface heavy as far as days go, and let us move that down the way. We might have to have do a little bit of work on the interface to get ourselves the parameters we're interested in. Let's see how that goes. So this is gonna be Lego. What do we want to call them? Let's go for something simple for now. Okay. And so we're gonna go for FK01 and FK02. I wanted to copy these, but I pasted group 1 before. We're using as simple enemy convention as possible here. What am I doing? I have just renamed all kind of wrong things. This is my control. I was one off. So we say this is gonna be Lego FK. Let's say that it's an HRC. We're just indicating that that's a hierarchy group. It should never have a transform. If you want to be safe, you know, you could even go, well, visibility we might care for, but lock and hide, stash it away, make sure you don't do damage when you shouldn't. So, next step, actually, better. Arguably terrible control names. Depends. If you had a chain with like 20 controls, you know, it might not be a bad idea to do something like this. For something that is clearly a leg, like talk to the animators, maybe they would rather they're called femur and tibia or something else again. So what can we do? This is the part, if you want, when you're doing design work, where you gotta go, okay, for the FK component, so if we extract these, always start thinking in terms of interface. And chatter is picking up. Sorry for that. That was not the intended outcome. Somewhat tempting to give up green screens some days. It's so much work. Yeah, there's a lot of chatter. So this is probably actually gonna key myself out a lot. Seemed like such a great idea at the time. Alright, I'm gonna disable the filter for now. I don't want to spend the stream playing with that. Anyway, let's go back to it. And so what we want to do is figure out right away the interface that we want. So without, you know, with no regard for the guide or something like that, if we have an FK leg, normally if you look at it in terms of parameters, what do we need to know to sort these out? Well, we'll need to know that length, and we'll probably have it for the FK. So we need that. We know that we want the femur length. Now there might be a rest angle here that we're interested in. That will come from whatever the limit of the IK is. So if we put that limit in the interface, then we know that that's also the angle that we care about. So here's some food for thought. Tibia length, we're interested in it. Rest angle, definitely interested in it. What else? Chat, if you have any guesses, let me know if I'm forgetting something. We'll definitely want some transform here, which is going to be the word space that we need for it. Chances are that we will be using the same one that we used to buffer the IK. Then we might need to figure out the rest angle for this. So this will be rest angle 1 for the knee, and this will be, you know, rest angle. Writing is all over the place, but I'm sure you guys get the idea. Rest angle 0 for you know, the femur or the whatever you want to call it. Anything else? I do not believe that we need more than these to begin, at least. So Episode 13, I was saying like this. Some of these, if you're watching 14 and 13 isn't out yet, I suggest that you keep a notebook when you make components and keep annotating things. Make yourself lists. It's trickier when you gotta do it with Wacom and a blackboard, but I would if I were you. It's something personally I do it all the time. I have stashes of notebooks for all the stuff I've done. So, do we? Yes, we do. I mean, should we start working on the interface for something like this? Probably yes. Let's see. Now, we have been fairly diligent, I believe. So our input and output boundaries should be pretty clear. And this is the output for the leg. So this should be, I expect, everything that we care for. And we've been, you know, you can tell from the names that we're in a decent shape here. So it should be relatively trivial to get ourselves a graph like that. Now our solver for the IK happens to have a time input. I'm okay with that because we wanted to always evaluate. I've mentioned this in previous episodes. This is what Maya does to basically force an expression to always evaluate. When you create it and you have the evaluation options, if you choose always, this is basically the trick. So the fact that time is in there means that whatever you do, that expression gets dirtied, like the node itself gets dirtied and it gets evaluated. You don't strictly need it. If you have other inputs and they update correctly and that's all you're interested in, you don't need this. I'm gonna leave it in there for now because I'm not willing to challenge fate just yet. I'd rather we have a smooth experience. Let's not get any shapes, please. Don't care for shading groups, thank you. And the rest should all be good. God node. It brought in a little bit more than I bargained for, but that's okay because I don't mind the God node being there. We might have a look at it. And I'm sorry if this is slow going, but we're gonna be fairly methodical about it. So this is config parameters in the leg global. Maybe yes, maybe not. And again, something that came up in the previous episode, without custom tools and UIs to do this kind of work, like to show it through vanilla Maya only without any customization, our naming convention is a little bit weak. Because when you have input and output or the config or stuff like that in the graph editor, you never really know which one you're looking at, so we might need to extend our naming convention a little bit and append the component name to these otherwise, you know, singular kind of objects. And let's have a look. So we are stashing something here. Femur length and femur length and tibia length. So we are good to use that actually. Now what we want to do is make sure that we position this buffer at the length of the femur, so by the end of it, which is the same thing that we will be doing for the IK, so we get some consistency right out of the gate. Actually, sorry, let's look at the orientation as well. And we said that we want to orient these as much as possible to what the word space at rest will be, so it means that it's gonna roll down the Z, and it is gonna pitch on the X. So femur length, that means we want to offset by Z. Okay, that's for being like randomly drawn icons. It was surprisingly precise. Now simple, super simple icons like these mean that they're pretty easy to control. Like when you want the guide, if you want your, and I'm calling them icons, but it's just the shapes in my, like something, for me, something that is meant to allow you to select a manipulator in the viewport. I often call it icon because it comes from somewhere else. It's nothing official. But if you use simple stuff like that with an ending line, you can actually connect the endpoint as well, the endpoint of that shape, which makes the guides change your controls as well. But you know, your animators might not like something like that, and you might have to do something more complex. So the next thing we want is the rest angle of the IK. We could actually probably in guiding stage just link the FK to the IK, and then when you de-guide, you freeze some of those values. But for now, let's place the buffer. So what are we doing? It would be good to have the buffer fairly well aligned to the IK one. This is where we need to start figuring out what our rest poses are, because the IK buffer we actually also use for the aim constraint that gets us the aim and up vectoring. What is that? Getting translate, scale, the rotate takes from somewhere else. Hit forward. So we do have something good already going on here. We should be able to just get the translate. Is that FKO2? So I've already started. Nice, go me. I was already connecting the wrong. No, never mind. I'm correct. I forgot. I was connecting the length, not the buffering. So we want to take this first one and at the very least place it where the hip is. Time flies when you're modeling. That is a decent start. Then we would like some offsets. Few ways we can do it. Do I want to deal with it right away? And or do we want the IK to actually just be straight so that the animators know that when it's lined up visually it's also locked out and all of that? That's a tough decision. I'm tempted to say that the 0 should be lining up. So the default of the controls is going to be somewhat offset. Should probably start working on bringing in the geometry and working more to that. Decisions. Well, we don't need to solve it just yet, to be honest. We can live without solving this just yet. Because all we want really is to make sure that we get the component in there and that we can blend correctly. So let us take the position for sure. The translate as we have it is good. We will introduce an angle in this buffer. We're gonna say, look, the default for when you select both controls like that, if you're an animator, and this might be tiny on your screen, this is all zeros. Like this is going to be how your rig comes in. This is your default, and we say that we're going to limit the IK so that we take the crude and easy naive approach to avoiding the pop, or at least constraining the pop to be non-obvious. We are going to somewhat constrain the FK to the same parameters so that there's more consistency. This is the kind of stuff you will discuss with your animators, with your lead, anim lead, with your supervisor, anim sup, or whatever. Because some people like the consistency in angles. It makes our life a little bit easier, but it's not a big deal. But it also means that a lot of people go like, oh, this is not straight, and yet it's all zeros. So it's an interface problem. It's in the user space. You should talk to the users about it. So next thing. Let us get so here's the other thing. The only reasonable way to know if we're doing the right thing is like in all of these exercises, what are we interested in? We're saying we want the blend factor and we want to go out to the full. So again, I suggest that you go and figure out the edges of your problem always, and you go, okay, what I want to obtain is some third set of transforms that come out of my component, not just the IK, not just the FK, but I want the blend between the two, and the end of that, so something that is probably going to be reoriented to whatever offsets we have here to become the one output that goes out to the full. And this is why I like to work from the edges or from outside inwards. It just makes life so much easier. So if I want to verify that what I'm doing is useful and is correct, I really need this. This is the only thing that I care for having an effect on. If I do that, I know that my component is at least technically correct. Easy way to do it and to get some diagnostics as well is adding the form stack. Sorry, not the form stack, the deform objects. I think, I'm not sure we have done it. I don't remember. Chat, help me out. Have we done it? Have we talked about adding a form output like this in the pilot season? I believe so. But anyway, if this is the control layer, and that has an input, which is what the animators push into this thing, something that goes out to a mesh, you could represent, and this is, make no mistake, this is basically an outer edge that goes outwards, just not to other components, or not always to other components as much to the mesh itself. This is basically one of your outer edges in many ways. So we want something in there. Whatever. My interface has gone a little bit wonky, but that's okay. Can deal with it still. We do want something in here, and that should not have created an IK or anything, that we can blend. And that will give us some diagnostics, as well as, yes, you did bring up the form output during pilot season. Thank you. That will give us some diagnostic as well as something to play with, because you always gotta have something that you output to. And we don't need complex names for these things, to be honest. If you know it's a leg component and it's always gonna stay a leg, you know, call them whatever you want. Joint is a little bit redundant because it'll be obvious from the viewport and from the type of the object. Personally, I will call them SRT, because what I really mean to output with these is their transforms. So the really important information when you read these, to me, is that they're, you know, I mean them to be transforms. So we good with that. We do want to add a blend parameter. That is something that the animators will want control over. We did not do any parameters on these, so we also want to get ourselves one of those. I will take one of these, one of that. Oh, come on. Alright, gotta switch to the mouse for these. Surgical operation. So our naming convention is really going all over the place, and we should probably lock this config, like take my own advice I gave before. It should be obvious that these are only meant to host parameters. In fact, even the visibility on these we really don't care for. Lock selected. Hide selected more than lock. Lock is kind of useless there. My daughter is really excited. She thinks that FK is great. So what next? Get ourselves the parameter that we actually want. Might need the attribute editor for that. And so let's say that at 0 we're in FK and at 1 we're in IK. I suggest that when you do this kind of stuff, name things correctly. So if at 0 you're at FK and at 1 you're at IK, call it FK IK blend, not the other way around. I've many times have seen these inverted, and I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter, it bugs me a lot. And if you really want to be sort of anal-ish about it, you could call it a factor, but I believe that, you know, this is something the animators will see, so the simpler it is, the better. Unless you have several parameters, several terms to that blend, don't complicate it. This one, if you don't want to add extrapolation, which is you want to interpolate between two ends, you don't care for, like, hey, I'm between these two ends, right? And it's 0 and 1 or whatever. If you don't care for more than that range, and we don't in this case, and that would be extrapolation, then feel free to hard bind it. The soft min, soft max recommendation I normally give, like, doesn't really apply to here. Bind your problem if you can. And I might, yeah, no, it's okay. It's keyable by default. That's not bad. It's amazing how much longer it takes to do these things when you have to explain what you're doing. Because this is the kind of stuff you will normally breeze through in a couple minutes, but I'm wondering if at some point we should start dropping some steps from what we narrate, but probably not on what is actually the first season if we consider previous one a pilot. So we have the blend. We don't really necessarily care too much about it just yet, but it's good to have it there. Now, what do we want? For this stuff here. Sorry, what am I doing? There you go. For this stuff here, we want to get the word orientation of the IK solution and the word orientation of the FK solution to do the blend. Now there's several ways there's several ways to do an interpolation like that, especially for rotation, depending on how much you are at risk of gimbal lock. We are gonna take the easy way out for now, because I think this will work for a simple ball and legs just fine. But sometimes like interpolating rotations can get tricky, and eventually when we remodify the foot roll, we'll go over some of the things that rotations entail and what you need to keep an eye on. But for these, I think that, and in blend additive, DA is double angle. What I want is a rotation one. Can I find, there you go, additive rotation. So for those of you that are watching this at 720 on a laptop or something, this is the name of the node, this is the type of the node, and it came in for layers when they implemented layers, I believe, or maybe it was from Kaidar when they bought Filmbox, I don't know. But it's pretty good. It'll spare you conversion nodes. We do like that. Now we want to work in word space, because these items, like my FK and my IK, have completely different spaces, and I would like not to go insane. So SUT buffer, hip, femur, and okay, that's good. So we're interested in the orientation at the hip. Shooting from the hip, I don't know, that sounds terrible. I've turned into a dad jokes. And we do want the word space, so let's grab that. These can only blend rotations for us, so we want to convert to scale, rotate, translate kind of stage. If you are the kind of person that wants to do their own custom nodes, before we get to that ourselves on stream or something like that, if we ever do, it is very useful to have something like decompose matrix, but instead of doing all this work with multiple ports, which can have an overhead, and also have the stuff that creates these ports for you on a node have a real cost, something like extract from, where you can get a matrix and just extract a subset of it in other terms, so getting just the rotation, just the translation, and so on. It's an extremely useful node to have, well, an extremely useful collection of nodes to have. Now, sorry for a second there. Then we want the FK, and today is burning away. Did I ever add it? Possibly not. Yeah, no, I didn't add it. So FK control, we will basically need the same thing we did there. I think we do not have automatically add, which most of the time is good. Sometimes means that you have to track your nodes. And I don't think I'm gonna take the narration down to what shortcuts I'm using. But if you don't know, like, these things up here are 1, 2, 3, 4. And make sure that you have something selected before you run them, otherwise your entire graph switches to that. And that being the same shortcut that does model work, I don't think you can turn off that behavior. So what do we care for? Input A. So we want to blend from A to B, with A being the FK, because we say 0 is the FK and it's the first one that starts. So much talking for so little doing. It's like a real job. It's like being a supervisor at home. So we only care to get the rotation out for now. Do we have some silly joint orients? No, we don't. This is word on word. And we'll have to look. What am I doing here? Why is these off like that? That seems strangely off angle. I must have done something silly with it. Yeah, I have. So this is the buffer that I was selecting by going through the hierarchy. Without noticing, I probably clicked in the screen space that gets you an object orient, and I yanked it to the side. So, is this correct? I would expect better, to be honest, but let's not go bonkers yet. What do we have? Rotation, interpolation, Euler. There you go, Orion. Rotate order. So make sure that your rotate orders are aligned if you can, but I believe that this affects the rotate order of the output. You really don't want to complicate the issue. Taking from, sorry, actually, let me explain that for a second. When you fetch the matrix like that, there's no rotation order. A matrix does not have a rotation order. Only Euler rotation, so sets of three angles need one. Every other commonly used representation of rotation, so quaternions, axis angle, and so on, they do not need a rotation order. But, yeah, the curve. Anyway, let us have a look. Weight A. Oh, okay, so this is now using half and half the weights. I forgot that the blend doesn't, it's not a linear interpolate between two items. I mean, this lines up with the rest of Maya. When you have more than two items, this weight A, weight B thing, it makes perfect sense. When all you want is to go between A and B, it's a pain in the back, but fair enough. You know, if we complain about lack of consistency in other places, we have to pay the price. Now that means that this is going 0 to 1 with 1 being the IK, so the weight of our IK should be straight up what we get. Now this being, yeah, there you go. This being 0 to 1. You can add new items. Yes, so that's fair enough. It makes perfect sense then that it's that. Can you destination plug? Okay, I don't want to know. That looks like something I don't care for. I think it's you can add multiple outputs maybe. No, or something else. Not sure. Don't like it. Don't care for it. So what else? Rotate order. What's the rotate order of these? X, Y, Z. I would have expected better, because I'm looking at the word matrix. So this is oriented that way. Oh, okay, no, never mind. It's actually correct, and I'm stupid. It is perfectly fine. We just drew the I forgot that I drew the joint that way to make sure I get no silly orients or anything like that. But then I forgot that, yeah, this is just parenting the two things. So I need to line those up. We're good. Whew. And extract from matrix nodes are super useful. I keep using vector product nodes to get the position component of the matrix, and it's super. Yeah, so okay, super quick tangent. What I recommend you do, if you write your own nodes, so get a matrix, sorry, matrix to vector extraction where you can extract the rows. Get something where you can extract the diagonal. A lot less useful, a lot less frequently, but you might want it, and if you're writing, you might as well. Get something that takes the matrix and gets you just the rotation, just the scaling, and just the translation in 3 separate nodes. It makes your graph a lot clearer, and it often will save you silly things downwards, because sometimes you want to grab an item and you just want to extract the rotation. So if you don't have something that takes a matrix and converts just the rotation, then you will also have to do some form of extra work very often, and you have more handles that you need to toss around, and it's slower and all of that. done. Just get the simplest possible nodes. You might end up with 200 nodes, you know, in your library one day. That's what happened to me. It's fine. Why the diagonal? That's for another day. I'm gonna leave that teaser out there. So anyway, but if you want something more obvious, the determinant is also very good. And for square matrices, for orthonormal square matrices, the determinant is pretty straightforward. Now, moving on, before I completely forget what I was doing. The next thing we need to do is get the weight B going, but we also want to ensure that we are driving the right things by the right parameters. There could not be a more obvious statement than that, I guess. So we were driving the length, like let's look at that. We're driving the translate x by the femur length, not from there, but from there. This is a good idea to apply to the joints as well. We might need to undo that. That's good. What else do we want? That should not have added joint orients for us. Yeah, thank you, Maya, for once. And I just saved. Chat, you are bad people. You did not remind me to save. Now we might as well connect. We do care. We do care for the length of these right now. I mean, you. Yeah, you do. Let's not go down yet another tangent. I'll keep that for another day because that's a long tangent. So, I mean, it's really hard for me to actually comment on what I'm doing now. So what I want is to get the tibia length into the translate Z in there, and this is probably going to be murderously tiny on anybody watching 1080p. Look, it's there you go, tibia length going out to the position in Z of this joint here. So that way, and we don't want the X, we want to suppress it, make sure that we don't have silly joint orients. We are good. Now the next thing we want, because of silly weights, is we want to, for the blend, yeah, it should be as simple as the subtraction. There's no subtract node, is there? I mean, other than the plus minus average, which I do not like. A double linear, no. Sorry, I'm just getting grumpy here. What I want is literally take one and subtract the IKFK blend. I'm trying to figure out if there's some. I was trying to figure out is there some blend 2, I guess. If there's some node trick where I can negate one number and all of that, and yeah. Float math. Reverse does get, that's the problem I have with reverse and, you know, multiply, subtract and all of that, is that they always work on vectors, so it's it will work, it's fine, but it's just, I don't like this. I dislike the fact that I have like a compound part with 3 fixed name handles. Like, this is a pain in the back. Whenever you have to script this stuff, now you have to find the compound, you have to store the compound and the subport and all of that. I just really don't like it. So anything with 3 ports, when all I want is a float, I don't like. Per blend, yeah, but you people are, this is one of the problems I have with the base collection of nodes, and I understand why it's the way it is, but everything is made to be so generic that you can put, you know, triplets or quadruplets or, you know, doublets and everything in it. I want something that takes one flow and another flow and subtracts them, and that's it, and gets me one output, not an array of vectors that I'm gonna use for just 2 floats. Now, that rant aside, what I was thinking of is actually, if there's one of the additive blend nodes that there should be, Node additive. Is F for float? I forget. What is the F for? Oh, good lord. Because there you can negate the weight, keep the blend in, the interpolate mode as additive, and that will get me what I want. I just don't remember what F is. That is, anyway. So let's have a quick browse over catalog. Anim blend too much. Anim blend node additive. DA is double angle. DL is double linear, which will probably be distance. FFA. So this might be float, float angle, float linear. So it sounds like F is what we want. Simplest possible thing. I want the float, and I want 1 minus that float. So I expect that, no, if I get this into input B and I set the weight to -1, it will negate my input, so it will be 1 minus that. Input A with hard bake to a 1. Is this a single float subtract node? We will find out. So copy tab that, save, because copy tab is very dangerous. Believe it or not, copy tab, not so much on Windows, on Linux I've had like chain crashes from copy tab. And do we get what we want? That's the question. Do we get what we want in there? So the IK, yeah, we should be able to just teach. I don't know why I copy tab, because I've already connected the blend. Float math with binary operations, also subtracting. I am not sure I fully understand the statement. Like, do you mean that you have separate nodes, or that you have one node that is a generic node? So anyway, so that seems legit. Now let's, I say that this is going to be helpful because it's in many regards a diagnostic. Let's make it a valid diagnostic. No, comes with Maya. Okay, I might need to reinspect the library because float math library also subtracting. I can't think of a subtract node that takes a single float. If there is one that is not this silly negate the weight trick, I will like it. Now, and I cannot claim to be a vanilla Maya expert, to be honest. It's I have a decent idea of how Maya works and what you can do with it, but when you become a good enough programmer, one of the attractive things about Maya is that you can just write your way out of many problems. One of the problems with Maya in some ways is that you often have to write your way out of a problem. And I'm okay with it, keeps me employed, I like it, but it's not for everybody. So, what do you know? This seems to have worked. Started a little bit late, I'm a little bit over, but so you can't see, I'm sorry, let me get that. Okay, FKIK blend, so there you go. It's jumping a bit, so what is it for? Yeah, control. So that part of the blend is working. Now the second part is a little bit more interesting. Float math. Oh, what are you guys talking about? Is there a node called? Yeah, no, okay, sorry, I know this one. No, not my kind of jam. I'll be honest, I completely forgot these existed, and this is better, I guess, than the anim blend node additive thing. What I like, for just to be extremely clear, is not to have to switch these, because this is a state. So if you want to consider your graph as a function, this is a very highly local state, unless you connect what is an enum, which is a pain in the butt, to somewhere else. So that's my problem with these things. What I like is nodes that go like, here's two floats, these nodes subtracts, and nothing else. Yes, you end up with 200 nodes, that is a good thing, believe me. Well, or don't, I mean, it's a good thing for me. Anyway, moving on. So the second part of this blend, because we're not working everything in workspace, is only ever so slightly trickier. So no, it's not actually. It might be very, very, very easy for us. So let's. What I was about to say is it only happens once. So what we want to blend is and we've done similar things a million times. What we want to blend is the relationship between this control and that control. Because what we want is this angle. Remember that we do have a rest angle here, and that's represented by the buffer. So you can't just take the local of this, because it will be 0 at this point, whereas it should be representing this angle, but it's 0, so it clearly doesn't. So that means that you have to do a little bit of matrix math to find this object in the space of the one above. We've done it a million times in the pilot, less so in this season. Hopefully it's going to be clear what I'm doing. If it's not, you can go and watch the part where I go over matrix maths in the pilot season and it should become clear. Now I was thinking, do I have to actually do strange things for the IK? No, because the IK actually is trivially easy, as we actually do have that one angle. And the other interesting thing is that it is literally just the one angle. So moving on, let's do that and then call it a day. So we get a full blend with no unique conversion nodes, which Ryan promised the word for me, despite the fact that I had made not such promise. Way to put me on the hook, man. So let's get that done. All right, it's hard to this is one of those other phases where you go it's pretty hard to make this part interesting. So okay, I'm a helper. You are a helper, but helpful people can also be dangerous. You are occasionally dangerous, my man. Now, mode matrix. So what do we want? We want these in the space of the one above, which means that we take, come on, magic node. Magic node, show me all of your attributes. Bury yourself in front of me. Chord matrix, sure, do not add that thing until I change your state. Multiplied by the word inverse matrix, and no, you can, never mind that. I was about to say something stupid, I'm not gonna say. So this should now be that thing in the space of the one above, and I keep selecting the join, but I mean obviously this item here. We do want it in SRT form, so we'll decompose the result. And I would like to get me this rotation. So an in blend node additive. In fact, this will be pretty good actually. So we'll duplicate special, do me a solid. Come on. Oh, I'm afraid of. I don't think it's done me a solid, but let's have a look. Let me pin everything. No, it's not connected stuff for me. It's alright, and we'll survive. So now that is gonna be RFK. We say that that's gonna be the first of the inputs. The second one is exactly equivalent to what we have here, because we plan to use the second one, I mean the second set of interesting terms is the blend, and we want that straight up to match, to match the one above, so that we blend by the same terms all the time. I don't care for that scale compensation thingy, please stop doing it. You'll probably redo it as soon as I connect something. It's like that appears depending on the phase of the moon. Lego 2. Nope. Okay, your output is a secret. apparently. Show me all, because for some reason your output is a secret. Go into the rotate, so that's good. Now we need the IK one to come in there. Fair enough. Sorry, fair enough was for someone in chat saying that they're a helper, never say they were helpful. Yeah, I mean, it's a technically correct statement, I guess. Save again. So chat, pile up the questions, because I'm gonna connect a couple things and then be done with it. I hope everything made sense. It's not really heavy. I guess in a way this is the equivalent of the kind of tutorials that we don't do. It's like, hey, this is how you do an FKIK blending. It's kind of like that. I mean, it's practice, it's doing stuff. And what were we getting it for? So for the record, okay, let me go on my last tangent for the day. So this is the object that we want to take from, and we're gonna do that for now. We are okay doing just that. Now, here's the part I like about this. Like when you think about it, because this isn't already in the right space and everything. For, where is it? I really need to rename these things later. For this input, we don't need to do any tricky things of any kind. Literally, all we care, because that's already in the right space, will be for the rotate X to go in there. And bam, we are done. I suspect, I feel, and I hope that we are done. So there you go. That's your FKIK blending. It's slightly off. Have I done something silly with the buffer? Oh, you know what? I've duplicated the node, which means, yes, these were carrying over. All right. Anyway, I'm sure you get the idea. So that's your FKIK blendable done. Now, something to note here is that you might notice that yes, we do have all this stuff for the IK, and all of this stuff being like 5 transforms and 1 expression and a couple other nodes. That is all CRUD. That is there so that I can explain and show things, and I can diagnose. But now that I have this chain here, like if you actually take a good look at this graph, practically all of this is redundant. You could take the inputs that drive those things and their operations and so on, and literally all you care about is 1 transform that we are getting from our angle between. So we don't really need any of this hierarchy. Add 1 angle to that transform, and it's literally the 1 angle, so it's pretty easy to do. And that is the first part, and that is all you care about that goes in that first joint. The second one, when you look at the IK, is stupidly simple. Like we're literally getting 1 angle, and that angle, this, let's make that point clear, I guess, is getting it from the expression. So I can just get rid of it and connect the output of my expression in there 1 to 1, and I'm done. And the same is true for everything else. IK, well, when you have a simple case of IK, like V chain, so just this V shape 2 bones, or a C chain, so 3 bones like that, or a Z chain, whatever, is literally just gonna get you a few angles. So it should be a mode where you blend in a very small set of information into whatever the deform output, you know, whatever represents that final state of the leg. The thing people do where they take 1 IK chain and, you know, another chain for the FK, and they do weird things with all the tricks you can do with joints and stuff in Maya to get it to a 3rd chain, and that chain is then bound and all of that. It can be compressed to these, which is 1 expression or 1 node for the IK. Maybe, again, if you don't write your own nodes and stuff, maybe another couple nodes for the vector, for the vectoring and the aim, and, you know, to buffers and 2 controls for the FK. That's it. That's all there is to it. So I don't know. I mean, this includes other things from, you know, other components. That's a diagnostic. Though I have no idea how that locator is just helping us for something. So there you go. It's 38 nodes with CRUD in it. You can do a whole leg in maybe 30 nodes. So if you need to blend the chain in a stretch state, you need to keep track of a few more values. Yes and no. Yes, you do need to keep track of more values. You don't need a lot more though, because if you look at it, we are already keeping track of things like, where is it? What am I doing? It should be here. Yeah, translate that. So we're already keeping track of things like the tibia length and the femur length for these things to happen. It will be pretty trivial to output the same things from an expression. We'll talk about what that does to evaluation, when it might or might not be a good idea. If you do your own nodes, it's going to be a pretty good idea. IK is a very simple solution, and it should be treated as a solution, not as a massive hierarchies. You should solve just the parameters you want and put them in. IK being constrained to a plane, so not all IK all the time. IK constrained to a plane makes it a very easy thing to do. All right, so I don't mind this. I think this is in a good place. So I'm calling it here for the stream itself. I say double divided FKIK blend. We did. So go on with the question. Speaking of custom nodes, recently started writing my own. Is there a similar command for creating a triple of angles like the create point? No, not that I know of. You have to do it by hand, and you have to respect the same naming conventions that they use. Almost everybody that gets to a certain point writes a macro or something for it, because it's a super frequent thing. So no, sorry. We all do it by hand in one way or another, or we automate it with a macro. I keep having this thing where I like look at OBS going like, did I start recording? Yes, I started recording. That's good. All right, let me see what the stream delay is like. I am gonna call it if I don't get any questions in the next like 30 seconds or so. Yeah, delay is actually 40 seconds. Just wait until you try to write a node that has quaternion inputs, outputs. It's, you know, it's all boilerplate. You get used to it. You write yourself macros or scripts or pre-flights of one sort or another to do it. It's look, I don't mind my API, so let me make that clear. I think there's a lot to it that is actually pretty good. It's verbose and boilerplatey in places, but it's really hard to write an API and keep it alive for 20 years. Literally, you know, it's 2 decades. Like, I know there are people watching these that going by YouTube analytics that aren't as old as my age, and not have, you know, any CRUD in it. I mean, when it was written, stuff like mint array, you know, the primitive for arrays of integers, in late 90s, that made perfect sense. Oh, a long time, Ryan. It's probably 3 seasons away. Now, right, I'll give you the answer now. So if you care, like, when do you care about the matrix diagonal? The matrix diagonal is what will tell you a number of things, like the matrix diagonal being all of a certain values and stuff like that, can tell you whether you're pretty much good to go to get an eigenvector out of that matrix in some calculations. It can tell you, you know, the state of that matrix and so on. So it's not, that's why I was saying, look, it's certainly not the first node you're gonna write or use. It's very rare that in something that you be composing as nodes, you will use the diagonal as is. but it can be a good test. It can be good to know, oh, you know, the matrix diagonal is all ones. There are special properties to matrices, especially if you don't use matrices just for transforms. If you're actually shuffling around a little bit more, like if you use them more creatively, there's a lot to be known from a matrix diagonal. And the determinant is obviously super useful, because the determinant can also tell you if you have inverted the handedness or not, in example, which a lot of people do in really weird ways. When the determinant of a matrix is, you know, has changed sign, if you do something that can track the sign of the determinant, you will know that you inverted handedness. Anyway, I'm gonna call it, because this is not the matrix math stream. Thanks for watching. And if you follow the stream, I'll be streaming again tomorrow morning. I don't know exactly what we'll do. I guess we have some cleanup and stuff to do. Maybe get started on the guide, clean up the interfaces, clean up these nodes, because right now it's like I'm in blend 01, I'm in blend 2. This is unholy, but I have a job to do and I gotta walk to it. All right, thanks everybody again. I'm gonna stop the recording. If you're watching these on YouTube, do not panic if the previous episode isn't up yet. It will be following shortly. I just need a few minutes this weekend to record something for it. See ya.